Okay. Thank you, everybody, for being patient. It's great pleasure that, well, first of all, ladies first, it's great to have Kay back in just over a week since I last spoke to you. And you brought along a friend of yours, Brian Franklin. Brian, absolutely tremendous to have you come and join us. Really wanting to hear about your story. And the reason for the slight delay is because we're hoping that internet problems will be overcome by Mike. Is it Mike Danovich?
Mm-hmm.
Who is now? Let me get this right. He's not the founder. That's somebody else. A lady called Erica
Fuchs
is the founder, but Mike is the president of
Yes.
of a website called a group called
Uncuff The Innocent.
Good.
So Brian is also a board member.
Right. And Brian, you actually well, without any further ado, Brian, would you like to tell us a bit about your story?
Yes, I will. First of all, what happened to me can happen to anybody. Like I've said before in other interviews, all it takes is a poor investigation based on a false accusation, and it can happen to anybody. I was a police officer. I was a Fort Worth police officer for over 12 years. I was accused of a rape from a little girl, a little 13-year-old girl. It didn't happen. Nothing ever happened. I barely knew this kid. She was my friend's daughter, and the whole thing just spun out of control. A very poor investigation by the Fort Worth police, and so they went forward with the case. And my attorney told me, if you take a polygraph and you pass that looks good. So I did that, took the polygraph using the DA's polygraph examiner, and I passed it. And we told the DA that, and the DA went and talked to the polygraph examiner, couldn't get rid of my polygraph because the guy said, hey, the guy's telling the truth. So they said, okay, so they changed the date of the alleged offense. And this is a variety of errors by the DA. But they kept going forward with the case. They wouldn't throw it away, even though it was quite obvious the girl was lying. So I ended up going to trial back in February of 1995, and I was found guilty. I could not believe it. I worked for the system. I thought I knew the system. I knew street law, but I did not know courtroom law. And when I was found guilty by the jury, I fainted in court. There's no way I thought an innocent man would be convicted. And so I was sentenced to life in prison for a crime I did not do and nothing to do with. After about 5 years of being in prison, the girl comes out with another story saying her stepfather raped her continuously over like 10 years. So, yeah, and that was big evidence that blew my case open. And because of that, the DA changed their theory of the case, saying, okay, both you and the stepfather raped her at different times, at different reasons. Instead of admitting they made a mistake, they kept me in prison, and they prosecuted this other guy, the stepfather, and after a couple years of him being under several indictments, he got probation.
Wow.
And for hundreds of rapes of a girl, and they kept me in prison. But we used that evidence about the stepfather to file what's called a habeas corpus.
Yeah.
We had a hearing. After the hearing, the judge found me innocent because I could prove I had like a double alibi. I could prove where I was through stored time and dated receipts, and I can prove where I wasn't because people at this birthday party said I wasn't there. But the DAs didn't care, and we have this habeas hearing. The judge found me innocent, but there's 2 steps to a habeas corpus in Texas. First of all, the judge gives his recommendation, and the Court of Criminal Appeals gives the final say. And in this, the judge found me innocent, went to the Court of Criminal Appeals. They didn't like his findings. They remanded it back to him to make further findings. He made some more findings and conclusions of law, found me innocent again, sent it to the Court of Criminal Appeals, and they denied my writ. So I continued to be in prison, even though the trial court judge found me innocent. So long story short, some laws changed. We filed my 3rd habeas back in like 2015 or 2014. Anyways, I got another hearing on that. The girl testified at this hearing. She maintained her lie against me.
Wow.
But the Court of Criminal Appeals this time granted me relief. And so instead of being happy and everything, the DA's office says, okay, you beat us, but we're going to retry you.
Huh.
So I got out in May of 2016, and they retried me in December of 2016, and I was acquitted very quickly by a jury.
Yeah.
And, finally the truth was known, and, like I said, it can happen to anybody. People said, and I said myself, there's no way an innocent person will be convicted. There's people who say they're innocent, but they're not.
Yeah.
And it got crazy. And, for them to try to retry me, knowing what evidence I had, knowing I wasn't even there, yet they tried to convict an innocent man again. But thank God for the jury who will listen to all the evidence.
Wow. Amazing. As Dark Side of the Moon has commented, let me pop that up. I hope you sued them, Brian.
Well, it's very hard to sue the county.
Yeah.
I did hire an attorney to sue the girl, who's now an adult, and she testified her same lie in the second trial.
Yeah.
But the PA did not prosecute her for perjury, and I had an attorney look into suing her, but she doesn't have anything to sue for. So that didn't work. I am seeking compensation from the state for wrongful imprisonment.
Yeah.
And I'm working on that.
I mean, really, that should be automatic, shouldn't it, Mike? Hi, Mike, by the way. Thanks for joining us. No worries. Glad you're here. I mean, that should be automatic, the sort of, the compensation. But, it just strikes me that it's like the government just holding on to this ever-rising balloon, and they just don't want to let go because they can't. It's almost as if, they've attached themselves to this balloon, and it's just getting higher and higher.
Yeah. Now, if you're on my 3rd habeas, which I was granted relief for, it was for perjury and not for actual innocence. So they say, okay, if you're actually innocent, we'll give you compensation. But because it's perjury and you're acquitted on a retrial, that's not good enough. So, it's an uphill battle. They want to hang on to their money. They don't want to do the right thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, Brian's case is like so many other ones. You could take what Brian's saying and match it to tons of other convictions. It starts at the very beginning of the investigation with the police, and then it goes to the higher ups in that department. Then it goes to the DA. Then it goes to the judge, and it's like they're afraid to just admit the mistake. They get tunnel vision. They think about, they just focus on one person and don't listen to anything. I mean, that's the case in all the cases that Uncuff has. Tim Wright, Daniel Holdsclaw, Michael Crump. I mean, there's just tons of cases just like Brian's. And we have another exoneree on our board, Ray Spencer, same exact thing. I mean, it's just time and time again. That's exactly how it works. So, it's frustrating. thing for sure.
Yeah. Mike, I wondered if you would care to tell us a little bit about this. I'm going to share screen now and pop up the website. I wonder, can you see that okay? Can you see that okay? So if you'd like to tell us a bit about your
thank you.
Yeah.
Well,
pleasure.
This all started when I watched a documentary on Brian Holtzclaw on the documentary, and I was just dumbfounded at how crazy it was. And I used to tell my wife how it doesn't really take a whole lot for people to have their lives ruined with stuff like this. So I reached out to the Holtzclaw family. I spoke to Jenny and her dad, Eric. Went and visited Daniel after talking to him, visited him in prison. And then I went to Oklahoma where I met up with Erica Fuchs, who was also starting to try to come up with a way that they could help people in the same position as Brian used to be and Daniel. And we created this website and this nonprofit called Uncuff The Innocent. And what we do is we take donations and we take on people's cases and help them with the defense, whatever it is. I mean, some cases we're hiring private investigators, others we are hiring attorneys, we're paying for their appeals process, things like that, just whatever needs to be done to help that person. And unfortunately, it's to help that person prove his innocence is what it is. It shouldn't have to be that way, but in each of these cases, and we get probably two or three requests for aid a week, I would say. Yeah. And it's just so hard. We're a volunteer group. We do it just because we think that it's a good thing to do, and we believe in the righting these wrongs. And but it's just hard because we're at the mercy of people donating, and it's just one of those things that you're trying to right this wrong, and it's just hard, So those cases that you see there, those are some of the cases we have. We also help get departments. What is it?
Body cams?
Yeah, body cams. Sorry, had a brain fart there. Help them get body cams because that's the biggest thing. In a lot of these cases, like in Daniel's case, if he had a body cam, this wouldn't have happened. We could have proved that he didn't do it. And the same thing for some of these other ones. So that's how we can kind of help in the process down the road by helping some of these departments get the body cams. But we also help the people that have already, unfortunately, been on the other end and are sitting in prison, watching their lives and rot away because they were unjustly convicted of a crime they didn't commit. So it's tough. I mean, just imagine being a family member and everything moves so slow. It's like, for instance, and Brian, this. You do an appeal, you're 2 years. That's 2 years of time. You're sitting in prison and you can't do anything. And then you wait. And then you hand in all your paperwork, and then you wait a year for the appeal to come through. Denied, of course, right? I mean, they're not going to change that unless there's some crazy thing. So then you have to keep going through the process, and each process is over a year long, and you're just sitting around rotting, thinking that everyone's forgotten about you, and that's kind of why we created it, because it is a problem. And hey, I'm not here for a second to say that the criminal justice system isn't needed and there's not everything broke. It's not broke, it needs fixed, but the ones that these ones that we are looking at, it failed them, and we need to just fix those problems. And some of these officers and all these people need to be held accountable and say, hey, you need to work at a higher standard than you're working at. They get Daniel Holtzclaw. They knew they were going to bust him the second they saw him. And if you watch that video, you can tell that that's what they were after. They had tunnel vision, right? And then it just goes right up the chain, Same with Tim Wright. Tim Wright's convicted of a crime that, quite honestly, a deputy's son probably committed, right? So you have that factor in there, so they just look at one person, and then next thing you know, they're rotting in prison for the rest of their life, so that's kind of what we're up against. But
yeah,
it is what it is.
Yeah,
we just got to work hard.
Mike, just going back to something you said just a moment ago. It's a case of people that are looking at these cases and trying to to sort of publicize what's going on. It's not as if we wake up every morning thinking, how can we best undermine the government or law enforcement or all these sort of things.
Yeah.
It is just so painfully obvious that there are problems with with these things that are going on. What I was going to ask you though is that is it one of the hopes then that eventually a lot of these places will bring in these conviction integrity units? Do you see them being helpful?
I certainly I think it would be helpful. Oklahoma, for instance, has one of the highest crime, incarceration rates in the nation, if not the highest.
Right. Yeah.
Number 2.
They obviously need it. They have a problem. They have something going on there. I don't know what it is necessarily, but there's corruption somewhere along the line. It needs it. Yeah, having an independent board that looks at things like that is would be helpful for sure.
The DA
Okay. Sorry, Brian.
Too. The DA offices usually have absolute immunity, so they're not worried about making a mistake.
Yeah.
They can't get sued.
Yeah.
Well, there was actually a question by I think it was. Let me just go back here. Alice. They've gone past it. Here we go. And I suppose, in fairness, we should invite Kay to say a few words. If you'd like to answer this question from Alice.
Oh, what do I think about that? I think it stinks, man. I think it just gives them a license to do what they do if they're inclined to be dirty cops. I mean, the prosecutor, the district attorney has such great power. And I've said this before, I think when people are voting, we don't necessarily think about, or I didn't used to put much thought into, who's running for, are we going to retain these judges? Which judges are up for retention? Who's running for district attorney? I've never been involved with the law or been in trouble or been in the criminal justice system. So I really never realized how much a DA can screw up someone's life if they're not, operating between the lines. And when you get these district attorneys that, are reelected and they hold their position for decades, it's just really sad. But in Oklahoma, we have a big issue with corruption in our state. So there are quite a few corrupt DAs and detectives, obviously. And
well, I was going to ask, can anybody answer this question for me, which puzzles me from this side of the Atlantic, and that is why is it up to the attorneys, the prosecutors in any case to decide what might be favorable to the defense and therefore should hand over this exculpatory evidence? And in effect, they can decide what they want to share with the defense and what they don't want to share. I mean, where did that come from? Whose idea was that?
Is that true, Mike? I mean, I think they're supposed to turn everything.
They're supposed to turn over. But here's the thing: if they don't, they just say, it was a lost file or whatever, and I guess if it becomes so obvious, they can, something can happen to them. But I mean, it's here's one thing I want to say. Let's talk about grand jury for a second, okay? The grand jury is the most, in my opinion, is the craziest, most one-sided, rigged process there is. The defense can't even be there to hear what's going on. And I've been in grand juries as a police officer, and what basically happens is you go in and you sit in front of a bunch of people, and the prosecutor asks you whatever they want to ask that will look bad for the person that they're going against. They're hanging out with this the district attorney that's running it for a month or whatever, however long the grand jury sits for. So I guarantee you a grand jury can get a indictment on anybody right now for any reason. I don't care if you weren't even in the state. I don't care what your defense is. They can convince that grand jury to indict you for anything. And that's part of the problem too, because then what happens? Then you get arrested. Who has the means to sit in jail for a month while the wheels are turning with the justice system as you're trying to get bail and do this and do that? Your life is basically ruined right from the beginning. It's just a messed up deal. I mean, it just really gets me angry just thinking about it.
There was a Dallas DA who famously said that he could get an indictment on a sandwich.
Yeah. It's true. I mean,
I was watching the Adnan Syed case, and the investigator in there, the police investigator detective, is called Dawal Massey, and he famously said that his bar, if you like, for arresting somebody is 51%. It's up to the DA to make up the full 100%. But here's the thing about the grand juries. When these prosecutors are there in front of the members that make up this grand jury, same thing. You only need 51%. This is what they're telling you. You only need 51%. Let it go to trial, and then we'll find out if we've got the full 100%. Well, if the detectives have only got 51%, where's the prosecutor going to get the other lot from? He's going on 51%. Sorry.
That's the thing. To arrest somebody, a police officer is supposed to have 51% chance that that they did it, right?
Yeah.
But to prosecute, you have to be beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a much higher standard than the 51%. It's not 100%. Trust me, it's not 100%, but it's certainly higher than the other. And that's the problem. Now what do you do? Do you go to, do you say, hey, heck, I didn't do this. I'm going to challenge this. How many people have watched anything on TV where you see the evidence, and I know it's TV, I know you don't hear everything, but you see the evidence, you go, how in the hell did that person get convicted of anything? Yeah. It's a flip of a coin. Anytime you go to trial, it's an absolute flip of a coin, so you can't risk it. So what they do is they offer you something less, and you say, and Brian, I'm sure you've dealt with it. They offer you something less, and you just have to say, wow, what do I do? Should I do it? Should I not? So that's kind of how it works. And here's the deal too. I don't want to say 99.9% of the cops out there, the prosecutors out there, the DAs out there, the judges out there are fine. I mean, I don't doubt that. They have good integrity. They want to do what's right, but it just, when you're having so many people who get arrested, it just takes that 1.1% to skew the entire pot, and that's what we're dealing with. So, I was a police officer. I'm last thing I'm going to do is to badmouth them, because I respect a lot of them. And I know I've never met a DA myself that was crooked or any of that stuff. I'm just saying, just overall, things have to get fixed a little bit for these poor people that are getting convicted, and it's obvious that they're innocent.
Yeah, I was going to ask Brian. In your case, do you feel that them pursuing this conviction against you, was it accidental? Was it mistakes? Was it out of malice? Was it deliberate? How do you feel about the way that you were treated in your case?
Well, before my first trial, they probably believed the girl.
Right.
who says little kids lie? But little kids lie. But the second go around in my second trial, they know what evidence I had. They know the trial court already found me innocent. They knew I was innocent. They knew what evidence I had to show where I was and where I wasn't. But they went forward anyways. I think they offered me time served. There's no way I was going to take that.
No.
I wanted the truth to come out. I call it a necessary evil. Because without the retrial, they would have said, "Oh yeah, he was really guilty, but he skated. We had to dismiss the case." But it was a necessary evil to prove my innocence. I don't know why they brought up the second trial. I thought they'd throw it out. Their case was crap, and there were so many red flags. Whether me passing the polygraph, the girl's story kept changing. They didn't care. They like Mike said, they get these blinders on, and they just go forward. The stepfather was sitting before them the whole time, and they never even looked at him. It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, we've seen that so often, haven't we, with these prosecutors that they just, as I say, they're hanging onto this ever-rising the balloon. They can't let go. Talking about Daniel's case, is that, dare I say it, a little bit like Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey that obviously a lot of people in the chat are very familiar with. Stephen Drizzen, who defends Brendan Dassey, once Brendan Dassey's been through exactly what you've been, Brian. He won his habeas corpus. It ended up going to the seventh circus, as I call them, because they are just a bunch of jerks in this court. A particular Hamilton, and he actually lost he won and then he lost, and because Judge Hamilton voted against him. Although Brendan won 2-1, he immediately lost, because then the state could say, well, there's one judge in the whole land that has voted against this, and therefore, AEDPA kicked in. But really, the sort of point is, these prosecutors, in the case of Daniel, is it getting to the stage where some of these cases are, as Steve Drizzen said, they're just too much of a heater?
Yeah.
I suppose what I'm trying to say is that, forgive me for saying so, Brian, I hadn't heard of your case. It's absolutely fantastic that you've managed to succeed. But in some cases, do the prosecutors, when they've got a high profile case, does that make them dig in even more?
Oh yeah. They hate to admit they were wrong.
Yeah.
During investigation, it takes some guts to say, okay, we've been going down this road the whole time. Whoops, that's the wrong guy. Let's look over here. But especially when, like in Daniel's case, these women say this, and then their story doesn't make any sense. And it says, wait a minute, we don't believe you. They just go forward with it. So what the hell? See what it says.
But from what you were saying, Brian, about your case, I can see that, potentially in the future that there's going to be a similar scenario in Daniel's case, whereby people eventually are going to say, look, I was offered these inducements by Rocky Gregory and what was the other woman, Kim Davis, and I just went for that, and I admit it now, we did get it wrong, in that we were being used almost as in this sort of terrible way.
It could, in Daniel's case, could be like a house of cards. One woman starts telling the truth, the other one may tell the truth also, or the DA may put a lot of pressure. If you tell the truth now, we're going to go after you for perjury.
Yeah,
and that will shut them up real quick.
It's just, there are just too many people involved in Daniel's case, though. It's going to fall at some point. Whether it's
it's already starting to.
Officer that knew what was going on, that just, he's not working for OCPD anymore, or whatever. Someone is going to break it.
It's already starting to fall. And it's just going to take some time, They've got some good, really good interviews from when Kathleen Zellner was doing the civil part. They've got some really good quotes and statements there it's gonna, I mean, any normal person would hear it and say, wow, that's crazy. This never happened. So it's going to happen. It's just a matter of time, I think. And you're right. It's going to be like the cards are just going to fall. It's just going to fall apart on them,
Yeah.
So.
Mike, I was sorry. I meant to ask you early on. I wanted to know a little bit about how you. We've talked about the website Uncuff The Innocent, but how did you first get from being a policeman to sort of like almost as some people would call it, sort of changing sides, as it were,
Yeah, well, it started when I was I got out of police work and I saw some of the things that were happening, and I thought, I'm done. Sorry, I had somebody that had to get something for. I was finished with the police work, and I just wanted to do something different because I knew there were problems in the industry, So I wanted to start this. And sorry, I had somebody had to come in here. So I saw some inklings of things that were going on, and I just wanted to help. And then seeing that Daniel thing, man, it just drove me crazy. It was so bad that that just kind of fueled my fire to just help get this thing started. And it's not just me. I mean, it was Erica Fuchs did a lot to get it started, so just something. Everyone should have a cause, and I think that's just kind of what I wanted to focus on. So.
Sure. And Kay, I suppose same question to you is, is it just that you're a troublemaker?
I'm not a troublemaker.
No, okay.
No, I actually, he had already been convicted and sentenced when I mean, of course, I live in Oklahoma, so I heard about the case, but I wasn't following it. I just knew what the media was saying, that he was guilty. It was super emotional case with all the nasty charges. But I decided to watch the interview on Christmas break with the mindset that I was just going to see if I thought he was a good liar or not, because in my mind, he was guilty. It never occurred to me that he was innocent. So, yeah, this case really changed me a lot as far as how I look at things now. I was pretty naive.
Sure.
But I was sick. By the end of that 2-hour interview, I was physically ill because it's obvious that he was just trying to be helpful. Mm-hmm. I didn't know Daniel before that either, even though, I knew who his dad was, but I did not know him. I didn't know his personality or anything about him. So it's really easy to look at a big guy like that and listen to the things that they're saying about him. And it's easy to believe that he's a monster, or it was then. I don't ever judge anyone, no matter how horrible the charges are now.
Yeah. I mean, Brian, I suppose for a lot of people, if it's a case of the police are prosecuting one of their own, then there would be this natural assumption, oh, well, they've managed to sort of weed out one of the bad guys, as it were, and I think you were saying that, once that happened in your case, you didn't really get any help at all from colleagues, shall we say.
Right. Or even the media. I was, with a broad brush that I was some child rapist and this and that. And, they had CPS and, the police, and it was horrible the way they portrayed me. But then after I was acquitted, the media was all for me then.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I must admit, I am not a big fan of a lot of the media. Certainly, with what I've seen in like Stephen Brendan's case, the media ridiculous at times. That they really are just there to parrot whatever whatever the prosecutor says. They're just happy to run with that story. You've got this ridiculous Ken Kratz press conference, where he's talking about, Brendan and Steve having done this horrific crime, and it's all just sensationalism. And to be perfectly honest, and I don't want this to sound patronising, but here in the UK, a lot of that would be stamped out straight away. They would not be allowed to get it. I'm not saying that we don't have wrongful convictions, and I'm not saying that sometimes the media have caused big problems, because they have. There's another case here, actually just 20 miles up the road, of a lad who, his case has been compared to the West Memphis 3. The media just jumped all over this guy, accusing him of this satanic worship and all this kind of stuff. It's all just about selling newspapers, isn't it? It's all just about creating the most sensational story. Mike, how difficult is it to try and promote wrongful convictions against the police? I'd imagine that trying to sort of expose and promote's not the right word. You're not trying to promote wrongful convictions against the police, but you're trying to make awareness of wrongful convictions against police. Police against police. It must be quite difficult.
It is difficult, I mean, and it's a fine line, because you don't want to make it seem like it's a rampant thing that everyone's doing, because it's not. And it's hard to get. I mean, we started Uncuff in 2017, and it's a long process and it's just word of mouth. I mean, that's how Daniel's case got going, is just word of mouth, so people can see, and that's how you promote change. Really, is people start taking notice, and then next thing you know, it just snowballs into something bigger, and that's what we're hoping with, like Tim Wright's case that we've taken on in Virginia. He's sitting in prison for 60 some years for a murder that we believe he didn't commit. And, we put money into private investigators, phone records, all kinds of different things to, because now it's proven he's innocent, right? It's not proven someone's guilty. He's already supposedly been proven guilty, but it's just like, how do you prove it's like almost impossible, so it just takes so much time and energy and money to do it. Like, for instance, let me just say this. Let's say we have 5 cases. We went to files to each of these cases. We need to get all the paperwork and stuff. It's 20 cents a page. Tim Wright's case is 2,500 pages. Yeah. You see what I mean? So, and then Daniel's is probably 25,000 pages, yes. So we need those. So we have to pay to get those things, and then we just have to hope that the website and the things that we do, just like these podcasts and things, just kind of open people's eyes to say, hey, I'm just going to look into it a little more. I'm just going to do a little bit of my own research, watch some things, and maybe get on board and try to see what I can do. Just the thought of somebody sitting in prison for something they didn't commit is, I don't know if I can think of anything worse, I mean,
yeah, you can't, can you?
I just, like you say Brian succeeded in proving what did he lose? He lost years of his life, he's never going to get that back. And it sucks, and it's just not right. So, it's just something that we have to constantly work at and constantly try to get out for the public to see, and then just hope that it gains traction each case that we do.
Yeah, sure. Can I then go back to the your website and ask a little bit about the as you say, how can people?
Yeah, they can. How can they help? Well, yeah, different things. It's not just monetary. I mean, you can go in and donate, and there's links there that can help you. Yeah, you just fill out the information and give something. And I will say, 100% of everything goes to the clients. We don't take a penny of it. Everything is above board. We don't pay ourselves or nothing. Everything's 100% volunteer. There's also, you can do that, or you can become a volunteer. We could always use volunteers that can help with, things that we need to do to there's a lot of footwork involved, a lot of researching and things like that. We could always use that. It's just so many different things you could do. There's petitions on there you can fill out and sign to change.org with Daniel's and Tim's case in general.
Right. I was going to ask you what the petitions are about. If I just click on that, though, it should come up with them. And also, what I'll do is obviously include the link to this to Uncuff the Innocent in the description below, so it's easy enough for anybody that's watching this to obviously to go on and find about it. So we're talking about Michael Crump, Daniel, Michael Oxley, J.B. Van Story, incarcerated for more than 30 years, and Timothy Wright. And as you say, also you're trying to get the funds for body cameras.
Yeah, we've already given some to some departments. Because our thought is, if we can get every department suited up with that, then those wrongful convictions are going to go down. See, because this whole thing started with, it was supposed to be for law enforcement that, like Daniel, that are accused and convicted wrongfully. But then it was such a big deal that we started getting all these questionnaires back from people that were just general people that were convicted wrongly. So we decided to open it up to to anybody, that's been wrongfully convicted. So that's generally how it kind of started. It started as a police thing to help police that were wrongfully convicted, but then it morphed into just really anybody that's been wrongfully, or like in the Mike Oxley case, he hasn't been convicted. He was accused. So we got ahead of the game on that one. We got him an attorney and helped him that way. And there may be some news coming out on that soon. So, so it's just anybody that needs help as far as that goes.
I was going to ask as well, you've got, obviously here it talks about our work. Can we read about, for example, Brian's story in here, or is that?
Well, he put, you can ask him, but he put a little information, a little couple of paragraphs in there of each of us. But
right,
Brian, you can maybe answer that.
Yeah,
sure.
Everybody on the board has a little paragraph about themselves.
Right. So would that be in the about here? Would it?
The board of directors, right
board
there.
Board of directors, excellent. Oh, so there's you, Mike.
That's me. That was me. That was in Enid when I went to Daniel's. They had a get together with Michelle
Malkin.
Malkin, yeah.
Michelle Malkin was there.
Yeah. Well, there's Erica.
There's Erica. She's a big member of this. Does a lot of work.
Now, come on, Kay. Come on, Kay. Where are you?
I'm here. I'm here. Yeah, all of those guys are.
Yeah.
It's a good team, good board of directors there.
Yeah, we all work good together. We have meetings and talk about the cases. There's so much going on in each case that we have to, and we're all in different states. I'm in Oregon. Brian's in Texas, John's in New York, Ray's in California, Erica's in Iowa, so we're all over. So
yeah, I was going to ask actually, from this Uncuff the Innocent website, would you then sort of in effect become an Innocence Project?
Yeah.
And I mean, that's affiliated with the Innocence Project.
Well, we talk to them all the time. Each, yeah, there's certain things that we do that they don't.
Right.
They're a little more. I don't want to say. They have a lot of people that come to them. They're a little more political in who they pick. I guess we just look at the people that. And we just say, hey, I don't care if we believe you're innocent. We have meetings about it. If we believe you're innocent, then we do what we can to help. And there's ones that we don't necessarily help, but we try to help them when it comes up with parole hearings and getting released and stuff. So there's so many different things we do. It's it's a lot of work, but
yeah, I was going to say that. There was back in 2004, Steve Drizzen and Richard Leo. They did a paper which listed 125, sort of wrongful convictions. But I think I'm right in saying that the figure on wrongful convictions is way over 2,000.
Oh,
it's over 2,000.
I would say I would say. It's
yeah, and it's reckoned that probably, maybe between 2 and 5% of the prison population at the moment is wrongfully convicted. I mean, if you were going to fill those people into planes and crash them, something would be done about it, wouldn't it?
Right.
Well, they did crash. Each one of those crashed. Their lives, I mean, yeah, it's just terrible. 1%'s too much, right? But
absolutely,
I think it's more than that, I mean, and it's tough, I mean, you think we have discussions a lot with people in Daniel's group that don't believe in the death penalty. Some do, and we kind of go back and forth a little bit. But it just takes one innocent person to be put to death, and it's just like it ruins it. It ruins the whole theory behind it. And it's like. You want people that have done wrong to pay for it. We don't. We definitely want that, but it's like at what cost? You just kind of. It's just tough.
I mean, seriously, Mike. Whenever anybody talks to me about death penalty, I say, look, just check out Brian Stevenson. Check out Just Mercy. Check out what Brian Stevenson says about it, because that guy is absolutely right. Everybody, and I mean, the thing is, we're talking about wrongfully convicted, even people who have been convicted of a crime. They are more than just that crime, But anyway, we're not here to talk about, obviously,
I know.
genuine convictions, which is a whole different ball game. And don't get me started on a load of other things that I used to knock heads with the dude over. I mean, for example, one of the things is it's better that one guilty person runs free than at one time it used to be 100 innocent people locked up. But then it seems as if in this modern day and age the figure has dropped down to 10 innocent people.
And these are the ones. These are obvious ones, like the ones that we have. If you research it and look, it's freaking obvious that they're innocent. I mean, you can't watch the Daniel stuff and see everything and not. You'd have to be loony to think that's not wrong. What's happened to him? And the same with Tim Wright. I mean, it just doesn't make sense. It's like I sometimes I was like, what is in the water in Oklahoma? I mean, what is going on there to where the people can't see the problem? I mean, I don't know. It's just common sense to me, but
I think a lot of people in Daniel's case, really, they don't start at the beginning of the case. They get so wrapped up in these, how can 13 women all say the same thing when they actually...
No smoke without fire,
But... Mike's right. When you look at Daniel's case and you start at the beginning, it should have never proceeded past Janie Liggins. Nothing corroborated her story.
Nope.
Nope. Her story changed. Daniel's didn't. They had to connect him to Terry Morris, who they were basically already finished investigating. but they had to go back and turn that thing around and connect her to Daniel so that they could turn him into a serial rapist. And that's exactly what they did. It's just a freaking game. It's all fiction.
Yeah, and you may have talked about this before I came on, but the political climate back then with BLM, with, you know, all the stuff that was going on with Ferguson and everything, they weren't about to, you could tell they weren't about, I mean, they were marching, you know, BLM was marching outside the court. They could hear it in a courtroom while the court was going on. You could hear them chanting and stuff.
Yeah, the judge actually had to admonish the jury to disregard what they were hearing.
And they said if he wasn't convicted, they're gonna march. It's gonna be another Ferguson in Oklahoma City. You know, I mean, I'm not saying that's the sole reason he was convicted or whatever, but it certainly, you know, poured gas on the fire when it came to the prosecutors and the, you know, trying to prove that they, you know, weren't gonna, you know, allow that to happen. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Listen, guys, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. Obviously, I've had a couple of chats already with the lovely Kay, and I would like to thank you, Mike, very much for getting in touch. And Brian, I particularly want to thank you for coming on and you know, talking about something which must be an absolutely, you know, it must be horrible having to, you know, talk about, you know, what you've been through. You know, I've actually spoken to one or two other people that have been exonerated, and you know, just the time being inside locked up. You know, how do you get into this sort of like where you can take your mind somewhere else? I mean, how did you cope?
Well, I think it's sort of good therapy to talk about it.
Right.
You know, I did more than 21 years flat. For something I didn't do. I spent most of my time when I was locked up, even on the rec yard or in the law library.
Yeah.
My time constructively.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, you know, if somebody's locked up and they're busy trying to sort out how are they going to sort out this mess, that's a pretty good indication that they, you know, that something's wrong in their case, isn't it? You know, I mean, if you just sort of accept it, you know, I got caught. I mean, I suppose what I'm trying to say is I find it, unless you've got some people that have been convicted, they're guilty, but they're trying to look for a loophole. But I would imagine that, you know, if you're busy trying to find out how do you correct these errors, it's a pretty good indication that something went wrong. Anyway, I've kept you for nearly an hour, so I'm gonna say cheerio. And I suppose we better let you all say cheerio. Starting off with ladies first. So Kay, if you'd like to.
Yeah. Thanks
cheerio.
for joining, everyone. I just wanted to make one comment about the difference, I think, between the Innocence Project and Uncuff The Innocent. Organization is that I believe that, isn't it true, Mike, that with the Innocence Project, you have to have exhausted all of your appeals first before they take on the case? So
yeah, good point. They
it's
do.
Kind of cool when you can get out ahead of it. It's so much harder to undo after the conviction. So I mean, I'm so glad to hear that you guys are working with cases with Uncuff the Innocent that you know, can save someone from going to prison instead of what Brian had to endure.
I think
Daniel's enduring. And thanks for having us on again, Paul. It's always
always very welcome. You know, it's I wouldn't say it's great the topic we're talking about, because it's not a great topic to talk about, and we wish we weren't talking about these sort of things, you know. But unfortunately, we live in the real world where, you know, for various reasons, you know, people that have been through what Brian have gone through, unfortunately all too familiar. You know, Brian, your case seems very similar to so many others, doesn't it? You know, I mean, thank you. Just thanks for coming on. If there's anything you'd like to say, just to finish up, and then we'll move on to Mike, that would be great.
Okay. I think some innocence projects focus on DNA cases.
Yeah.
Those are a little simpler. You know, once you get the DNA that exonerates the person, you can go forward. I think Uncuff is a great organization. You know, it helps as many people as we can, and we just need more donations. But it's a great organization.
Yeah.
Mike, you get the final say, pal.
Well, I appreciate the time, and you know, I think it's important that we just look at some of these cases and say, you know what, I mean, just put yourself in the shoes of the people that are in prison that have no way to get help, you know, and that's kind of what we're trying to do, is just give them a helping hand to you know, I mean, it's so easy. I would imagine it's so easy to give up, you know, and we don't want that. We want, if we determine that you're worthy of our help, then you know, there's nothing we won't do, you know. But Brian's right. It just, everything just takes so much money. I mean, it's just crazy, you know. So you know, we do the best we can. You know, we're a grassroots project. We're not big by any means, but we're here to help whoever we can. And you know, so I appreciate the work you're doing. And when you were talking about what you know, how do we get this known? It's things like this, like you're doing. You know, you just get the word out that is a problem. Most people, their heads in the sand. They don't even know. They know what they read in a paper online, and then they move on to the next bad guy. You know, mm-hmm. You know, and we're here to try to pick up the pieces of it and try to, because these guys are right. It could happen to any of us, you know, and you know. So I appreciate what you do, and keep up the good work. And anytime you want us on, let us know, and you know, I'd be happy to help.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, you know, you've touched on something there, of course, the fact that, you know, for a lot of people, it's like, you know, these sort of mistakes, whether they're deliberate or accidental, you know, they happen in other people's backyard. You know, that's you know, it's NIMBYism. It's not in my backyard, you know, and as we've discovered, you know, in Stephen Brendan's case, you know, there are people in Manitowoc that are convinced that we're all deluded because we watched Making a Murderer. and the bottom line is that the more you dig into the case, the more you find out about it. You know, for me, information is power, isn't it? Because you can then go to somebody, and you know, if somebody's got a different opinion, but you can then go to them and say, well, you know, you say that a prosecutor wouldn't do this. What about such and such a case where this prosecutor did this? And they go, really? Did that really happen? You can say, well, yeah, that's exactly what happened. You know, information is certainly is the main thing. So yes, obviously, to all our guests that have joined in on the chat, there's plenty of you that have kept the chat on the side here going. I don't know, if, gents and ladies, if you're able to see the chat on the side there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, you don't see it.
I'm afraid to touch anything. I'm afraid that I'll lose it.
But no, it's great, and yes, I really do look forward to you know, hearing various updates on certainly on Daniel's case and all the other cases that you've got on the go, and yeah, hope that.
Look at the Tim Wright case on there, Paul. Check out the Tim Wright case on there.
Right, yeah.
It's an interesting one, and it's very sad what's happened. He calls me he used to call me twice a week. Now with COVID, he calls me once a week. It's just heartbreaking, you know, the things that's happened to him, you know. So, but we're working hard. We were going to go out there. We had a group of guys that were going to go out to help him or to do some research. The week COVID hit is when our plane was flying out, and so we had to cancel everything. And now we're just in a holding pattern with everything, you know. So, but we'll get it. We'll figure it all out.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I don't remember exactly where everybody's from now. Kate, I know that you're from Enid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Brian, I can't remember exactly whereabouts you're from. Which part of the world?
Texas.
Oh, sorry, yeah, Fort Worth. Sorry, Mike. Whereabouts you from?
I'm in Portland, Oregon.
Oh, excellent. So yeah, you are. I mean, the dude's geography was absolutely atrocious. He thought that people in Holland spoke Danish, but
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
well, because they're Dutch, so they speak Danish. You know, that was his logic. But if my sort of geography is correct, you've got Texas, which is sort of right at the south of North America. You've got Enid, which is Oklahoma, which is kind of like in the middle, isn't it? Middle of America, and Oregon is sort of off to the sort of west coast. Yeah. So you are pretty well spread out. So guys, I wish you the best of luck with getting more publicity and whatever I can do to help. More than happy to do so. So as I said, I just thank you guys for coming on, and if you could just say cheerio, and that would just wrap it up.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul.
Okay, you guys take care. It's nice chatting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.